Welcome.
Hello, chip dippers. Now, something I think about probably more than I should is the possibility of a handheld Commodore 64. What do you think about a mobile Commodore 64?
Do you mean mobile?
Mobile?
Yeah.
It's not a bull, mobile.
Well, it's not bile either.
Well, I guess she's got a point. But however you pronounce it, I still love the idea, and it's why I backed this Indiegogo campaign a few years ago for this handheld Commodore 64. Now, they never put this into production, and ultimately it became the C64 Mini that we know and love, and that I like to put inside bigger C64s. So what other options might we have for a mobile Commodore 64? Well, believe it or not, this rather shaky video shows a Commodore 64 that is battery powered and even has wireless video. I'll show you how it works. Remzi, the genius behind this, used some laptop batteries and connected these to the appropriate circuits, along with this step-down converter to take the 12 volts DC and make it 5. And then he's added a off-the-shelf video to RF converter that takes the video signal out of the ports and slings it. It's a lot of fun, but it's not really portable, not like the Switch. You're in first place.
But I'm...
What, you can't see?
I can, just... Ugh. Ah, oh. That kind of helped. Thanks.
Wait a minute. That looks really familiar. What you playing?
Golf.
Golf?
Yeah. What are you playing?
Made a program. Hit press enter and then type around. Screenshot. But just to show I'm not really that cruel, it's her birthday, so let's get her what she wanted. What you got?
A Nintendo Switch.
Cool. So if you could choose between this and the handheld Commodore 64, what would you choose?
Switch.
You'd switch? Oh, okay. Ow!
Do that again and I'll switch husbands.
Sorry, I didn't Nintendo offend you.
It's not about your Nintention.
Well, all fun and video games aside, how could we get a real handheld C64? Well, we could run an emulator on a Samsung Galaxy Fold. Commodore 60 Fold, anyone? But I spent so much time thinking about this, I started to see things. They have handheld pasta. Sorry, it says handmade.
Sorry to disappoint you.
You never disappoint me, Ladyfractic. But one day, I was browsing the Commodore 64 Facebook group, and I fell in love all over again. And in a couple of seconds, we'll take a deep dive into what it's all about.
Hello Chip Dippers, I'm Cem Tezcan, I'm a digital designer from Turkey. I hope you like the HX64 product design. See you around.
Thanks, Jim. And I think to say that we just like the HX64 would be the biggest understatement since sliced bread. I probably should have said bread bin. So let's take a look at some of the features of this concept, the HX64, which stands for Handheld Executive. Now, one of the main philosophies with this device is that it's compatible with the original Commodore 64. That means you can use your original joysticks and the same finger to turn it on and off. But that also means that round the back you've got compatible ports for power, serial, video and RF out. But more impressively, that expansion port is compatible with existing Commodore 64 cartridges. Yep, just like the Switch, this thing's truly plug and play. But if the idea of plugging things in like the Switch is too new school for you, well, why don't you plug in this mini data cassette? This is for the purists, no SD cards here. Designed so that you could save games that you've loaded from cartridge, or load games that one day perhaps are provided by the software house in this format, there's even buttons on the underside to give you all those old school cassette player controls. But of course it has a socket for the original data cassette as well. But why stop there? On the top we've got this dedicated gamepad and fire button, something I would have loved to have had on my original Commodore 64. It may therefore not surprise you to learn that Jem is also the creator of the Firepad 64, something you might have seen before, but 64. What's that you say? This is meant to be for executives? Well, executives need to play too, you know? As does Puppyfractic. Well, she's had enough of that. Maybe she'd have done better if she had a keyboard. Speaking of which, the HX64 features this gorgeous membrane keyboard, obviously inspired by the Commodore Max. And it reminds me a lot of my Atari 400, a computer I happen to have a lot of love for, so that's okay with me. Maybe I'm just insane in the membrane. So from the keyboard to where you see what you type, and perhaps one of the most interesting features of the HX64 concept for me, this mini CRT screen. Now, obviously LCD might be a better way to go, but if you want that full nostalgia, this concept really hits the nail on the head. Don't you think it looks like a Commodore 1701 monitor's been shrunk down and stuck inside the chassis? I like it. On the side there you've got a headphone and volume, and underneath, batteries included. And when I think about how much I love this concept, it isn't surprising to learn how much inspiration Jem took from all of these nostalgic designs and machines that I loved, as shown on his artboard. So if we could one day make this concept a reality, perhaps via a Kickstarter, or if someone like Retro Games Limited who makes the C64 Mini happens to be watching, how would we power it? And I don't mean batteries, I mean the processor. Well, obviously there's very limited space inside, so we couldn't use real chips like the Commander X16 project will. Now I chatted with Jem about this, and we feel like a Raspberry Pi is a good option, particularly if it's running the excellent BMC64 emulator. But that would still be emulation. It is possible that instead we could use an FPGA. But remember, FPGA isn't emulation, it's kind of a recreation of the original chips in miniature form. And to build it for us, I recommend PCBWay! They're having their third PCB design contest right now, something this product would be perfect for, because as we all know, PCB stands for Portable Commodore Basic. Doesn't it? So how does the HX64 compare to the SX64 that would have been? Well, really the main differences are the use of micro USB and presumably a micro SD card, and of course that LCD screen. Whereas the HX clearly appeals to childhood nostalgia. There's no HDMI output to be seen. And that's because Jem imagined what this would have been if it had been made in the 80s. But having said that, he is open to looking at a modern version, might be modelling one soon. So will this product ever see the light of day? Well, in a way, that's kind of the point of this video. Jem and I hope, if nothing else, this just inspires manufacturers or budding entrepreneurs to look into the power of true nostalgia, maybe get something like this on the shelves soon. In the meantime, I'm happy with having this kind of handheld. Happy birthday, lovely Fractic. And to all my lovely viewers and patrons, I'll be back soon. Thanks for watching, subscribe below, and cheerio.
What is Super Mario's full name?
Mario brother.
Mario.
That's cool. What about Luigi?
His last name's also Mario because they're brothers.
I guess that makes sense. I'm so glad I'm Mario.